What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the ninth album by metal band Metallica. Basically this product is called Death Magnetic and it came out in the late summer of 2008. So basically the thing about this particular product is the fact that I reviewed the additional bonus package to this product, which was basically Beyond Magnetic, an EP that came out in late 2011. So this the package. The factoid behind it is just the fact that Metallica past like the 90s did not really super commonly drop as much. They only really dropped like 2 albums in the 2000s, for example. Then after this particular album, their next studio album did not come out until way out in 2016. Then after that, they did not come back until 2023. So it's just kind of within the pitch as far as saying they've had some stuff here. Now they did have like a couple side projects that came out in like the 2010s. Like there was one that was kind of with like some art type artist, not just art in terms of like a musician, but actually some sort of like pencil type artist, something like that. Don't really know his full blown, but I am eventually going to get to that one. And then there's like the Beyond Magnetic EP that was like some extra tracks that they recorded for the sessions for this particular album. I reviewed that back in the summer. I reviewed Beyond Magnetic back in the summer of 2024, but I wanted to get to this particular album to see what's about it, just because I realized that Metallica tends to have a lot of Heralda type albums before, like the Black Album in '91, albums like And Justice for All and Death, Master of Puppets, and Ride the Lightning, some of those type ones. 80s Metallica seems to always get like a pretty Heralda type appeal. And I do appreciate those albums, but I also realized about them that they are lengthier type songs within the pitch, where I do like radio snap type songs from Metallica, songs like Enter Sandman and Sad But True, and some of the songs off of their 96 album Load, and some of those type of ones just more adapted to like more radio type fare and snap. But the thing about this album is going to get a classic score here, but it is the pitch. I just understand that this takes it back to vintage kind of 80s Metallica within the pitch behind it. But the thing about it is there's no radio single type edition of these songs. So when you get these 7 and 8 minute songs on here, there's no single variation of it to where it would be like 3.5 or 4.5 minutes. It actually is like, I think when these songs were played on the radio, which I would wonder about hearing some of these songs. Like there's one song on here, like The Day That Never Comes, that has over 100 million plays, but just within the pitch, that's almost an 8 minute song. So I just question, it's strange. Like the album that I reviewed back in like late 2023, Saint Anger, that had similar lengths of songs to this particular album, but they shortened them down to have like a single length as far as those pitches can happen. That was a good, like, I like that particular concept. It's just different. I think I have the adaptation. There are songs by like The Weeknd and other folks that do have some lengthier type songs within a certain type pitch, just within the fare. It's not super common, but I think, just within the aspect, this album is very vicious. It returns it to like the thrash metal days. Definitely reminds me of vibes. Probably I'd have to say a Master of Puppets from '86, and then also like the Black Album from '91 with a little bit of like the makeshift type fare of like Load from 1996. Not quite as work friendly, full blown as Load was from '96, but definitely the aspect of just bringing back that recreational shreddage that was so vicious with like the Black Album from '91, and then definitely like the kind of thrash metal lengthier song type format of '86's Master of Puppets. So it's just good amalgamation. I definitely see this as like a return to form for Metallica, but then I didn't really have many problems with Saint Anger from 2003, and I didn't have problems with Load from '96 either. They were just different variations. I appreciate the concept of just having different splashes of just things to do as far as like the aspects behind it. Now I question, well, I'm sure within there might be situations where certain Metallica albums might have like a discredit to what particularly kind of happened. But this is one where I see a dislike the ones from the 80s. Now I've listened to at least some of Master of Puppets from '86, but I don't know his full bound like Ride the Lightning and some of the earlier '80s type projects that had to say, and I haven't really listened to his full blown. I am going to get to And Justice for All from '88 soon enough, just from the pitch, but I realize that's kind of within the format. So just being able to say it's some good type tones, but the instrumentation on this particular album is pretty severe. I just would have to say it's just the aspect, just being able to say it's like the typical type fare. But I will say this is not as dungeon oriented as Saint Anger. That just had more kind of collective type projects as far as just being a little bit more turned up with like bottles everywhere, pizza party pitches like that, just standard fare where there's going to be some frenetic type craze. This one's a little bit more commute in mind, but just also within the push of being able to say that it has the aspect of like that excitement. It has primers on here, just some good concepts, but it does have some venue type noises. But surprisingly, there's not as much venue type commotion as much as it is like there's more dungeon type songs for like homies hang out, just more within the sense of like more venue step out within like some socializing, kind of going out for beers and things like that. But it's just within the tone. A lot of this just kind of has like those stretchers of just like, it has some songs like Unforgiven 3 on here. They're just like the original Unforgiven from the Black Album from '91. Just pitches like that. Doesn't have as many full bound kind of like, doesn't have like the power ballads on here. Surprisingly, songs like like wherever I may roam and like nothing else matters, some of those type of pitches, but it does at least bring back another Unforgiven. There's some ones on here that definitely has some dredge on this particular album, just the fatigue of like some lengthy kind of hot summer days just in the pitch, and then some good dungeon hangout type ones. The type of appeal. So I'd say this is going to get a classic score, but I will say that that's kind of with an asterisk in certain senses, just because I look after their. It's not like a full bound complaint, but just the concept. We'll get to that as I talk about it. But there were 4 singles off this project here. So the first single is "The Day That Never Comes." This is a nice one. It's like a glazed kind of summer evening, dredgy ass day. I'd have to suppose about this in particular. The lead single, "The Day That Never Comes," is a real nice one. It's like a glazed kind of summer evening, and I'd have to say in particular about this one, just a dredgy ass day. I would definitely feel like here to smoke a J, definitely lazy, settled downing as far as this pitch can have with this. It's just good type tone. Some of these type ones, it's kind of the aspect of something like the Unforgiven off of the Black Album or one of those type of pitches, just a little bit more simmering in mind, not quite as ferocious. Now there are some songs on this particular album single wise like My Apocalypse and All Nightmare Long that have a little bit more shreddage about it, that just kind of have that typical kind of push about it. But this is definitely one for more like 5:45, 6:15, almost 7 o'clock p.m. in like the summer, July, August pitches like that. Just appreciating the summer heat, the 80, 90 degree weather, some of that type fare, just with an aspect of like, damn, kind of a little bit worn out a bit, just within the tone behind it, just a little bit of just mellow typeness, just to be able to have, get some Burger King, some of that type fare, just cool off of it, just within the tone behind it, just the aspect of this kind of, I mean, there's some songs on here that kind of indicate that the day, the work shift, whatever, just the standard summer push about it is just kind of a doozy within a sense. There's some nice ones that kind of have that tone, but this, it also reminds me of like there's a song Until It Sleeps that was off of like Load from '96, has similar fashion to that one just within the pitch. But it's interesting that the lead single has more fatigue about it, just kicking off this particular album, because this is the most popular song off the album according to Spotify, just within the pitch behind it. But yeah, it's a nice one. My Apocalypse is the second single, and this is a little bit more viciousness about it. This is like amidst the makeshift. My Apocalypse is amidst the makeshift, kind of a hot day push to kind of get here, just like '91 Metallica, I'd had to say, with a little bit of '96 within a relative work shift type sense. It's kind of back to shredding with this particular one. This particular song reminds me a lot of like Hardwired to Self-Destruct, the lead single off their 2016 album, which is interesting that this was like an early preview for what they would do 8 years later as far as this pitch can happen. Not just 1 or 2 years later, but 8 years later within the pitch. Pretty factor within the standard fare behind it. Reminds me definitely of like '91 Metallica and 2016 Metallica just within the pitch. Just something more like an album cut from like the '91 Metallica album with like a little bit of like the makeshift relative drear of like the '96 Metallica kind of album just within the pitch behind it. Just being able to say, yes, it definitely feels like a makeshift song in like a hot June, July, August type day, but it's just with an aspect of just having that standard shredding of just kind of the excitement. Not so much as factory as like compared to like the standard worship, but just the aspect of just kind of being amidst it, just whether you just got done or just have a few more moments, just kind of within some of those type pitches. That's a good, nice one. A little bit more alive compared to The Day That Never Comes, was just within the pitch behind it. And then All Nightmare Long is an even more shredding one than My Apocalypse. It's like a more gnarled kind of snaring hot ticket, I'd have to say here. Definitely some dungeon music to kind of get within that tone. Just kind of, I mean, this one's a little bit of commuted mind, but also the aspect of just at the crib as far as those pitch kind of happen, just getting some good things going, getting hype, kind of a long-winded kind of highlight to kind of get here. And that's kind of the concept about it, is just when you have like songs, I realize the concept of having a lot of hit songs, when you do have short songs that are only like 1.5 or 2.5 or 3 minutes, it's kind of the concept that you have to have more songs to be able to find just within the pitch, especially if the folks that you put out that drop short songs only have like 2 or 3 projects. So it's kind of within the tone that this fills out the space of like a more crazed kind of night where you just need like a certain amount of Metallica songs, but it works within the pitch because these are some real nice ones. So it's good to have these long-winded songs as well. It's a real nice one, definite some dungeon music, just like Saint Anger, some of those type ones. The shredded, this is probably the most vicious song in terms of the singles with the shredded on this particular one. The standard fare for that, it really has like the good appeal behind it. It's some great and excellent type fare to just get crunk all night as far as those fares can happen. Just good type tone. And then Broken, Beaten, Scarred is the 4th single. Now this one's similar to The Day That Never Comes. It has to say it's just a little bit more, the song's a little bit more lively than that particular song, but it has similar fatigue about it. I'd say it's definitely a song that I'd have to say you'd be in need of goodies. I would definitely feel like this is probably one of those songs to listen to, and probably one of those songs to listen to when you're in a long line at like KFC or Popeyes, some of those type of pitches. Just being able to say a long line at Taco Bell or McDonald's, some of those type fares, just like, damn it, hurry up, I need some food, need something, need to get some smoke or some of that type fare, figure out what's going to happen for the rest of the late shift night or evening as far as those pitches can happen. Just kind of amongst it, this kind of that same sort of dredge. I feel like this would probably go hand in hand with like the same dredge about The Day That Never Comes. It's the same pitch to that, but just a little bit more, well, maybe not the same day, but maybe the concept if like the day that never comes, like Monday, Tuesday type music. I'd probably say that broken beat and scarred would be like Wednesday, Thursday type music. Just realizing that it's going to be some hype type times, just kind of some in between type moments to be able to get crunk to and just figure out, all right, can have a good Thursday and definitely Friday just in the pitch, but just kind of tone to just kind of have a little bit of just that standard drear about it, just the standard kind of hot fatigue of like weather push as far as that kind of goes, makeshift weather. Not to recommend cigarettes, probably one of those stressful kind of smoke a cigarette in the whip kind of days, just within a hot weather type push, just within the tone. I definitely say about songs like The Day That Never Comes and Broken Beat and Scar, just within the pitch behind it. So good type fare for some of those. But yeah, I just look after, so yeah, I basically recommend every single song off this particular album as far as those fares going to happen. Just the aspects behind some of these are real excellent. The aspect of these are real excellent. But yeah, I give this album like a 10 out of 10. Recommend every song on here just within the pitch. But the reason why I said it was almost like a mild asterisk about it as far as those pitch kind of happens, I just look after just being able to say the concept. Yeah, I would listen to every single song on here within the pitch. Honestly, I would listen like it was questionable. But just the concept as far as saying these songs are excellent within the fare behind it. But it's just the concept. If your attention span is more fleeting, you're just kind of within the tone and just want to get towards it and just kind of you listen to it. It's just, it has more of like a patience cap that kind of goes along with it, considering that most of these songs, like every song on this album is at least 6 minutes minus My Apocalypse. That's just kind of the concept about it, is just being able to say these are all ones, or just the tone behind it, these do, like, it's just kind of the concept, like getting bored after like the second verse, and then you get to like the rest of the song formats and everything that happens after like the initial type moments where the song format starts to stretch into like the guitar solos and like the tuning and some of those type of things. Not to say that that's bad problems, but just within pitch, as far as saying that just the concept behind it just has that pitch as far as that particular kind of goes. It's just within the tone is just like classic album here, but just within the aspect of just saying, I would definitely listen to these songs, but I just question, skipping the songs when eventually you want to get to the next song as far as this pitch can happen in terms like a playlist or being on your MP3 player or something like that. Just realizing that, within the standard day listening to like an 8, sometimes, 8.5, 7.5, 8.5 minute song just in the pitch is just kind of the concept behind it. But yeah, I just would say that's the tone. I recommend every song on here, so it gets a 10, but just within the pitch, if you just don't have the patience and you want to listen to like more just radio snap, which like I was saying, this album is not crafted to like more conducive. This album's not crafted to like more typical kind of radio type format with something that would be like 3.5 or 4.5, 5 minutes, something within that fare. So I would say within that fashion, you could almost say 9.75, but it's not slashing in terms of the quality and the aspect of what the band put in, the effort and the songwriting and all that type of stuff, the catchiness, the instrumentation, everything with that. It's just the concept of just the patience for listening to it as far as that fair can have. But it is quality. It's vicious enough. These definitely work for like some dungeon and just makeshift and all those type of formats. It applies to all these type of areas that they would. So it's just within the time. But that's the thing. So yeah, every song on here. So Cyanide's a nice one. Now this is one that's similar to like The Day That Never Comes and also Broken Beat and Scar. It's like a usual kind of hot day dredge, I'd have to say here. Just some good Cyanide is like some usual kind of hot day dredge commerce, I'd have to say. Just feeling awake kind of enough for like songs like Feeling Awake enough for the end of work shift to get crunk a little bit within the tone, but still kind of a doozy of a day, I'd have to say. Yeah, this particular album is definitely a summer album, I'd have to say, within the pitch behind it. This really feels like a swirling type one to be able to get within that pitch behind it. This typical, the real dredge about this, the heat is real, I'd have to say, with this particular album. This one is a little bit more lively than The Day That Never Comes, so it's just within the pitch. It just really feels like a frustrating kind of song within the pitches because the heat and just the makeshift of just having a hot sticky vehicle, something like that, just in the aspect of that standard blear about it, just within the tones. So some good tight tones for that, good tightness to be able to have for some makeshift. It's kind of somewhat of a doozy, I'd have to say. And then there's some ones on here like Unforgiven 3 is a nice one. It's like a good sequel to the originals, I'd say. I'm not sure which album the Unforgiven 2 was on. Maybe it was on Reload. That's the only album I can think was on, because it wasn't on St. Anger. Maybe it was on St. Anger, I don't really remember. But just in the pitch, I look after it, I question which album it was particularly on, but it's like, this is like a mellow and swamp kind of malaise, I'd have to say here. Just some vehicle token, I would definitely feel like just smoke within the whip, just some kickback within that tone, just that standard dredge, just another slagged ass day to kind of get within that pitch behind it. So just the tone is kind of the primer of just like the fatigue of just like that heat of just reporting to work, or just the aspect of just makeshift commerce, or just being amongst like the standard day, just being amongst like the standard day slag within the fair as far as that particular kind of goes along with it. Good type pitches for some of that. There's some ones on here like this was just some good 1-2 punch songs on this album, like That Was Just Your Life and The End of the Line. They're kind of like some more frenetic type ones, or at least some more lively type ones. That Was Just Your Life is like a lively kind of dungeon turn up to kind of get within that tone. It's also solid enough kind of venue boiler to kind of have within this pitch, this social and lit bonanza kind of have here. So it's just the aspect of this, like some good type comers. Like this kind of had like the shreddage on this particular song is pretty similar to the songs like Holier Than Thou, some of those type pitches, but they kind of switch in between. Like some of these type ones are like some of the ones more at the house, like I was saying, just in the aspect similar to St. Anger's type fare and a little bit of Garage Inc. Some of those type ones that just more localized type songs like That Was Just Your Life and End of the Line are more localized type fare just for getting some good commotion just in the aspect. But yeah, these songs both over 7 minutes here just in the pitch, so some good type tones to just get some beastly type ones to be able to have. This was probably like the mammoth rock album that was coming out in like late 2008 as far as those pitch can happen. This was like the holiday package here back in like the late 2000s type fair, just to be able to get this, especially considering the fact that they only dropped like twice within the 2000s decade. So this is like some mammoth type stuff. This is like the real cut loose type fair to be able to get, and this probably lasts. I think this was like a very durable. This is a pretty durable type album within the pitch. Despite the fact that it only had 10 songs in here, a lot of these just have the beastly kind of composition to be able to have like some good, just stretch out type songs kind of have for some of that type fair. So it's just some localized typeness. You get songs like That Was Just Your Life and End of the Line that are like some good kind of house party dungeon type fair within the aspect of this, like some turn up, just getting hard lick or some of that type pitch, just getting crunk towards it. Guitar Hero, some of those type things, just in the aspect, just movie songs, some of that type fair. But yeah, I'd say End of the Line is just like that one as well. It's like a feeling wired kind of commute I'd have to say within this tone about it, just kind of in the end of work shift push. It's like a kind of in the end of work shift type push to kind of get here. Definitely a slip. The end of the line is like an in the end of work shift type push to kind of get within that tone. To switch to flip mode, definitely like a primer for like some night fairs as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just the aspect is the shreddage on these is pretty heavy. Just have to say about some of these. Some of these, like I look after it, like this is pretty similar. The end of the line is also has similarities like the Judas Kiss and some of those type of ones, and a little bit of Cyanide. Just just kind of the atmosphere. A lot of these songs have the aspect of just kind of that fusion of going from like probably 3 o'clock p.m. just the last hour or two or three of like work shift to go into like the dungeon kind of hangout type fair, just getting crunk for like a Thursday, Friday. So just kind of the meld. I mean, there are some Monday, Tuesday songs like The Day That Never Comes and Broken Beat and Scar, but I look within the aspect, there's also plenty of good just end of Wednesday, Thursday type music, just getting towards the weekend as far as those fairs will kind of happen, just being able to have like the freneticness just within that intention. Just pretty much like I was saying, this easy kind of summer heat type album, just basically weather for over like 75, 80 degrees, I had to say, where it's just scorching kind of heat wave kind of days. That's supposed about that. Good type tones for that. And then the Judas Kiss is a nice one. Now this is like a vintage kind of 90s shredder to kind of get here. This is just like Holier. This particular song is just like Holier Than Thou off of the 91 Black Album, I'd have to say. This is pretty much like some Wide Awake kind of get hype kind of dungeon primers kind of get within that tone. So it's just the aspect, maybe going picking up a pizza, your homies are still at the crib, just going and getting like some supplies and pitches like that, and just kind of the excitement. Just got done with things, just kind of the aspect of just being able to get towards it and just have some particular lit times as far as those pitches can happen, just getting towards like the aspect of some further excitement. So it's definitely like a quick song. It's the same thing with like All Nightmare Long, some of those type of ones, and also the same thing with like the End of the Line, some of those type of pitches. So a good portion of this particular album is pretty vicious within the general get up of how these particular things can happen with it. So it definitely is not like this is pretty like this is not like this is definitely a shredding type project. I mean, it can definitely like Slipknot in terms of like it being crazy and manic. It's not so much crazy and manic, but for a metal album, it definitely is vicious. I would say it's just the concept. It's just not as like leery as like Mushroom Head, Korn, Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, some of those type of folks. But definitely for like vanilla metal, it definitely is pretty gnarled and vicious. I'd have to say it's just within tones. It's just the aspect. It's more like a hard metal, not necessarily hard rock, but more. Not necessarily hard rock, but more necessarily hard metal within the pitch behind it, so it's just within the tone. Then the instrumental song Suicide and Redemption is a nice one as well. Now this is a 10-minute song, but I recognize the composition, what this song, the aspect of how to fuck with this song as far as this pitch can happen, so it's some good type tones. This is almost a 10-minute song, but it works within the tone behind it. It's like a pounding shredder to kind of mellow out. This particular song is like a pounding shredder to kind of mellow out to, I'd have to say here, just some social ruminate, I would definitely feel like within the tone behind it. Just have some buddies, just ruminate aloud, some chit chats to interfere like that. This is definitely like some Domino's Pizza kind of music, Subway type music, just in some of those type pitches, just some dungeon kind of gap to kind of get within those tones. There's some good aspects of this real one to kind of stretch out and just kind of have the ambience of just basking pitches like that, I had to say, just within the tone of like just summer nights, some of that type of as far as those aspects gonna happen. So it's just like Saint Anger, some of those type of pitches. There's some songs like that on here, like That Was Just Your Life, and like I'd say like All Nightmare Long, some of those type of ones I'd have to say just in the tone. So it works for that. So yeah, just overall pretty compulsive type album just in the pitch. Just would have to say the aspect of just being able to nail some of these, just the aspect of just having like that poundiness, just be able to get towards like the craze factor, just being able to say in terms of like a metal album, this is like a de facto metal album for like the late 2000s. I would definitely feel like hearing an easy kind of classic to be able to say. So it's just within the tone, it nails it. Just like vintage Metallica, they get back on the spotlight. The only real reason why I would say that this album may be not seen as like as commercially, not necessarily viable, but just as full blown in the spotlight, is just because of the tone that these songs. It's not like it's just kind of the concept that the radio snap is just question whether or not the radio is going to play 7, 8 minute songs within the time. I mean, it did, but it's just kind of the concept. I just question it. But I think it definitely has the aspect of being able to nail. It's just within the tone behind it. But, you know, it's just kind of, so it's just an excellent metal album, 10 out of 10. The social score, that's kind of tricky. I think I would give the social score like a 9.5 out of 10 because I look after it. The social score, I think I'm going to give it 10 out of 10 as well. I look within the tone behind it. This is very impactful. This has the aspect of having like some dredgy kind of Monday, Tuesday type music for like the dredge of like some hot weather, just the frustration of like a hot, sticky day, some of that type of just the aspect of how that particular kind of goes, and then just the tone on top of that as far as saying that has some definite dungeon type music and some turn up just in the aspect. Maybe not as much venue push as far as that kind of goes, but definitely just more residential type fare, pretty similar to Garage Inc. and Saint Anger, I'd have to say within those pitches, so it just amalgamates that particularly well. So it's just the aspect, this is Metallica, they're a face of metal and pitches like that, so it's an easy enough album to kind of fuck with, this heavy kind of highlight, and it works for what it is, just in the tones. It nails those particular aspects. This banner type metal for late 2000s, I'd have to say, just nails those aspects. So in terms of the future, like Metallica dropped an album back in 2023, not really as full bound sure. By this stage, they're almost on like their 6th decade, I'd have to say, within the pitch, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, so it's just within the pitch as far as being able to say. Hopefully we'll get another album here or some sort of bonus type product with some excellent type fare. I am going to get to Injustice for All soon enough, maybe not like next month, month after, but definitely within the pitch that it's on the road as far as this pitch can have. But I do want to get to some more Metallica, but this is kind of a classic here in recent times, easy enough aspect to be able to appreciate, and has quite a bit of bite.